Hope you enjoy it.
You're actually I've been doing a lot of deep dives on you. I was a cop in the Army for like 13 years. So I go down these like rabbit holes when I investigate people before I interview them.
Uh-huh.
And you are a fascinating man.
Well, thank you. Thank
So
you. I don't think anybody's ever told me that before.
no, dude, you're fascinating. Yeah.
Well,
It's so since we're starting out and we're just casually starting out here, I just wanted to thank you for coming onto the Community Corner. Today's episode, we're actually going to talk about your career. We're going to talk about what you do in Trenton Youth Wrestling and all of your community work. And for anybody who's listening to the podcast for the first time, and for you also, Doctor, this is about empowering people who do beautiful things in the community and uplifting those people, talking about their stories, sharing about them so that people understand that there are really fascinating and amazing people doing really spectacular things for our youth, for people in need. And I think we need a little bit more of that. And that's kind of the guise and the premise of what we're doing here today. Babe, can you fix my paper for me? Thank you. Awesome. So, Dr. McLaughlin, so you are a neurosurgeon. You are a philosopher, kind of, because you also have a BA in philosophy. And from what I'm listening to your audiobook, because I'm actually listening to it as I drive to Trenton, because I'm the assistant wrestling coach for, not Trenton, for Kane University. So I'm always driving to Union. So I'm actually listening to your book on the way as I go there and on the way back. And then you also do Trenton Youth Wrestling, which is like kind of you donating a lot of your time to the community in addition to doing a highly specialized field. So I wanted to thank you for coming on. And
well, thank you.
yeah, and just if you could give us a little bit about your background.
Sure.
Amazing.
And we have a connection with Kane because I went to Pingree. So I'm from North Jersey originally, from Short Hills, New Jersey. And I went to the Pingree School when the campus was in Hillside, and that building that was in Hillside ultimately was sold over to Kane University. So Kane is now there. I went from Pingree to the College of William and Mary, where I wrestled there and was a starter for a couple of years and was a captain, won the EIWAs 1 year. I was a respectable college wrestler, not an outstanding one, but a respectable one. And then I went to medical school at Virginia Commonwealth University and pursued neurosurgery as a residency. So I went from Medical College of Virginia, Virginia Commonwealth University, to the University of Pittsburgh, and I spent 7 years there. I trained under an amazing mentor, a guy named Peter Janetta, who's one of the fathers of neurosurgery. And then I did a fellowship at Emory in complex spine surgery, and went and put my shingle out up in Springfield, Massachusetts. I was there for 2 years practicing, and then I moved back to New Jersey and back to my home state. And I've been in Princeton, New Jersey ever since for the last 25 years or so.
My wife and I are partial to Princeton. We love Princeton. That's our our go-to date spot. Always hanging out at the bookstore, Labyrinth Books over there. It's just a beautiful.
It's a neat little international small town in the middle of New Jersey.
Yeah, and so my wife's French, and I did not realize there's like a huge French population there. Till
Yes.
I'm married to her, and we were dating, and then now I hear French everywhere, and I can hear it better. And I didn't realize how much of an international population is actually over at Princeton. So
Right.
it's actually pretty cool. That's probably why the
Yes.
food's great there as well, because they have some good restaurants.
Yes.
Also. But what? So you became a neurosurgeon. Why'd you choose neurosurgery? It's really hard.
Yeah. You know, when I was in medical school, I was leaning towards orthopedics because I was an athlete and I had had a couple of knee operations and had some injuries, dislocated my elbow. And so I was more interested in orthopedics. But, you know, I had a wonderful neuroanatomy professor who really got me interested in it. And it just, when I rotated on that service, it was just so all encompassing. The neurosurgery patients, head injury patients were the sickest ones in the hospital. The neurosurgeons did a lot of hands-on work. They did a lot of medicine management, and they did a lot of surgeries. For me, I thought it really allowed you to flex your muscles both in medicine and in surgery, because neurosurgery involves the pituitary gland. So there's endocrinology involved and hormones. There's nephrology, because head injury patients often have a lot of fluid shifts and they have electrolyte abnormalities, so you're managing that. It was one of those, it sort of took all the pieces of medicine and kept it together. And in addition, you got to see hands-on results of your work after you did it. So it just appealed to me. And Medical College of Virginia, Virginia Commonwealth University, had a really strong neurosurgery department, and another charismatic leader who I just said, I need to hang out with these people. I'm learning so much and they bring out the best in me. So I went with it.
Do you like your choice of doing
Oh,
neurosurgery? Like reading your book, like there's a lot of, so I was in the Army for 13 years. I was a military police officer, served in Saudi Arabia, a bunch of other places doing police work. Yeah, just it's a high stakes kind of thing. It's a really different animal as opposed to ortho, which again, the expectation for somebody who's a high level college wrestler that goes to med school is like kind of tracking to ortho. Most of my wrestlers are actually in sports science and like that feel physical therapy, a lot of my wrestlers. So did that like turn you off like this high stakes kind of job, you know?
it's so that was a great question. Do I like my choice? I love my choice. I love my choice. Now, if you're in the middle of my book, you might be wondering if I was thinking about that at the time when I wrote the book, because there are a lot of ups and downs, and there were a number of questions I had when I was writing that book, which is about 6 or 7 years ago. I was trying to make sense of a number of things that seemed senseless to me. And you can see that sometimes. I'm sure you saw it in the military, and you can see that in medicine. And sometimes it's hard to make sense of life. And through having a really amazing co author and editor who really got me to see different perspectives of stories that I was telling myself that weren't really the whole truth, or they weren't really other perspectives of reality. That book really helped me, like, really frame my experiences so that I can now say, I love it. I love my decision. Back then, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I would say, I love parts of it and I don't love parts of it. Now I just say, I love the whole thing. I really do. And every experience I had, even the ones that seem most senseless, I found ways to put meaning into those experiences and to make them something that I learned or something that I impacted someone in a positive way, even in a very difficult situation. So I love my choice.
Why'd you choose philosophy? So you have a BA in philosophy while
Yeah.
you were doing the med school thing. So what was your rationale for like doing that? Most, I imagine, I don't know, I know a bunch of doctors, but I don't know them in that regard of like their majors. Most, I imagine, don't major and have a BA also in philosophy. Why philosophy with this?
Well, first of all, I knew that I was going to be spending my whole life, doing science and medicine. I knew I wanted to be a doctor since I was a little kid, and so when I was in college, I was like, I want to, I think this will make me a better doctor if I go into the humanities and learn humanities. So that was one aspect of it, and the second thing is, a lot of really potentially outstanding doctors get lost in the grind of that pre-med, choosing a strong, like a really hard major like chemistry or bio or molecular biology. Those things they can crush someone's dreams, because you're in college, you're a freshman, you're taking all these classes, and you get a B or a C, and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And the fact of the matter is you just have to keep pushing through. It's such a difficult road. You got to get A's in those classes to get through. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go the philosophy route. I'm going to take the bare minimum of science, just what I need to take. And I'm not going to take it the first year. I was really lucky. I had a great coach who's really had my interest at stake. And he said, you want to be a doctor? I don't want you taking any of those science courses your first year. Get acclimated to school, get some good grades under your belt, get confident. Take a biology class when you're a sophomore and a whole bunch of other people in that class are freshmen. You're going to have an advantage in that class and you're going to be more likely to get that A. So that is one piece of advice I tell people who know they want to be a doctor is, don't just dive into those sciences early in college, because you can get tipped over there, and it can be hard to make that up.
No, I agree. So I have a BA in English. I have a master's degree in special education from Keene. And the thing I speak to with a lot of the kids who are in school now and that I'm dealing with at the college level is like, these prereqs, these beginner classes are the foundation to schooling. Like doing the school thing. And you had a really smart mentor to tell you that and to go, well, you don't know how to school yet in college. So if you're going to take something this difficult, you might as well, like David Goggins talks about, putting victories in the cookie jar so that you already did a semester of college. So now you're prepared with, okay, this is the format. I have to sit here and do this ritual. This is how the process goes. And that's a really smart play on his. What did you like most about studying philosophy? Who was your favorite philosopher to really read? And
I liked Kant. I liked Kant, and I liked the process of thinking. Like, I think, it's funny. I'm giving a talk to the Princeton University wrestling team next week, and I want to talk to them about thinking. I get, sometimes you get pigeonholed as a motivational speaker, and my point to them is like, this is not a motivational talk. Like, you're already highly, highly motivated. That's not something you need to work on, but you have to realize that sometimes your thinking can limit you. You have to understand that, your thoughts are not always facts. Some of them are facts, but not all of them are facts. So, I use an example of like, when you go to college, you think your mom and dad don't know that much. And then you come home after a couple of breaks in a couple of years and you're like, hey, they're pretty smart, right? The old Mark Twain quote, how smart my dad got out in a couple of years. And so that's a good example of like how at some point you have a thinking, and that thinking can limit you because you probably didn't seek advice from them when you were younger and you needed it sometimes. But when you got older, you realize, hey, I really do want to seek advice from them. So the same goes true with other thoughts we have in our heads. So my point to them is going to be, we think that external events in our life give us meaning. We think that external events in our life give it a satisfaction or dissatisfaction. And that's not the case. Every single thought, every single source and content and thought you have is generated in your own brain. It's a response to a stimulus. So I would say, I'll ask them to raise their hands. Does wrestling give you satisfaction? Does school give you satisfaction? Some people will raise their hand. Yes. Answer is no. You bring satisfaction to your job, to your life, to wrestling. You got to bring it. It's an island. If you don't bring it, it doesn't happen. And that sort of thinking, it's hard sometimes. It limits our view of the world. And if you can open your mind a little bit and realize that you're the creator of your thoughts, you can really reach your potential. So that's my goal of this talk, is to get them to realize that sometimes your thinking is limited. And if you can get new perspectives, your potential is much, much higher.
Yeah, I love philosophy. I read a lot. I'm an English major, so I'm a dork about these types of things. So I do a lot of stoicism and a lot of stoic mindset with my wrestlers, kind of cognitive behavioral therapy approach of like understanding and rationalizing like why we feel this way. As when I first started military police, I was a combat support person. So a lot of what we did was room clearing and prepping and doing stuff like that. And then I became a detective, which was a different mindset shift when I have to interview a subject, about a crime they did or a suspect, which is really intense sometimes. But like our wrestlers, before they get out there, they talk about nervousness and nerves. And a lot of what I talk to them about is like, your body is chemically preparing you for a thing you're doing. So your heart rate is coming up because you're getting excited. Your body's literally prepping you for action. And you need to redirect whatever that feeling is to the appropriate motion. So if you're saying you're nervous, you're equating your heart rate raising to nervousness when actually it is a prayer giving you adrenaline and prepping you in excitement for the thing you're going to do. And a lot of that is like warming up beforehand and getting your body to meet where your brain is and all of these things. And that's actually, that makes a lot of sense, reframing.
Yeah.
Why'd you write Cognitive Dominance? Why'd you write that book?
Yeah, I had been giving talks up at West Point for a number of years. And one of my friends was the head of the Center for Enhanced Performance there, Dr. Nate Zinzer, and he's really one of the pioneers of sports psychology. And he's written his own book called The Confident Mind, which is an outstanding book I'd recommend. And Dr. Zinzer, he invited me many times up to West Point, and he really just said, like, just tell them stories about neurosurgery. Tell them about experiences you had in the OR that caused you to be scared and you had to perform. Tell them about instances where you were struggling with something and how you got through it, and let them draw their own parallels. This is sort of what I want them to feel, is like that they'll realize that performance is universal, whether you're on a football field or you're in an operating room or you're counseling someone who's suicidal or you're parenting your child to, get them to think about the decisions that they're making and the actions that they're caused. So it's all about performance. And when I was up there one time, one of the cadets said, what you're talking about, Dr. McLaughlin, is this thing called cognitive dominance. And I was like, oh, whoa, what's that? I've never heard that word before. And they said, well, it's a military term. It's enhanced situational awareness that facilitates rapid and accurate decision-making under stressful conditions with limited decision-making time. And I said, oh my gosh, how do I get more of that? I want that, And that sort of was the linchpin in kind of putting the umbrella over the stories that I was talking about. And again, up at West Point, I got a chance to meet my co-writer, Sean Coyne, who is a really experienced editor and written and edited over 400 books. And Sean really helped me stitch the stories together. And he got me to see a couple of different aspects of what I was thinking in a new light. One time I was telling them about, in the stories in the book about Jesus, that, I had this incredible save of this person who, dove in their pool and they became quadriplegic. And I took them to the operating room and I did their surgery. And amazingly, 2 weeks later, they actually started moving again and walking, and they survived and made an incredible recovery. And I chalked that one up to luck. I was lucky. And then another time I had this young boy who had this difficult tumor who I operated on, and he ended up doing really poorly and a poor neurological outcome. Is very undesirable. And I attributed that to my failure of technique, that I could have maybe operated quicker or picked up an infection earlier or done something to improve his outcome. And, and he said, Mark, we're going to put those two stories in the same chapter. And I said, wait a minute, that makes no sense. Like, you got this great save and you got this terrible outcome. Why would you put that in the same light? And he says, Mark, you just don't get it, do you? And I said, no, I don't get it. He goes, Mark, you take somebody who's paralyzed and you make them walk again and you say it's luck. Then you have a kid that has a bad tumor and he has an unfortunate outcome and you say it's your fault. That's an impossible standard to live up to. Like, how could you live up to that standard? And that was like the first day I started realizing, like, I don't want to let my outcomes define me anymore. That's a two-sided coin I don't want in my pocket. I'm not going to take credit when things go well, and I'm not going to take blame when things go poorly. I'm going to focus on how I can perform and deliver my service to whoever needs it as best as possible. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't do after-action reports. It doesn't mean that we don't review what went wrong with things, what didn't go well, but it means that I'm going to be responsible without blame or credit. And that's a huge concept to learn. And Sean helped me learn that. And so when I was able to finish that book with his help, I became a much, much better doctor. The person who benefited from that book the most was absolutely 100% me.
Yeah, I saw. So I love that you talk about fear as the catalyst for like preventing people from executing.
Yes.
And one of my favorite quotes, and I say this all the time, I actually send a little audio file to my wrestlers before big competitions. I don't know if you're familiar with the book Dune with Frank Herbert.
Okay.
So I have homework for you, Dr. McLaughlin.
I love homework.
I want you to watch Dune. Watch the newest one. You can watch the one with David Bowie from 1984, which is really insane and ridiculous and awesome. But in there's a quote and there's a saying: fear is the mind killer. It is the little death that brings ruin upon us all. And it goes into a little bit of a longer thing, but this actual mantra of like fear being the mind killer, it really reminds me of your book and this idea of being encompassed by fear and needing to remove that and excise that from your life because it's stopping you from pushing forward and taking risks where, at the end of the day, it takes courage and to move past fear to operate on a young person who is a quadriplegic and is having issues, and you could kill them by accident. Like anything can happen on that operating table. And it takes a lot of courage to move past that. And many things in our lives are stopped because of fear of the unknown and fear of failure, fear of success. Like, what is success? Like, well, if I do this dope thing, what are the catalysts that happen? Do I have to do X, Y, and Z? And that fear thing, honestly, I'm loving your book about that. It's really a great perspective.
You're
So
speaking my
mentally,
language. I love talking about fear because, we have so many euphemisms for fear. People say I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. I'm like, well, hold on. That's a euphemism for fear. You have a low level fear. So what is the fear? Sometimes people can articulate it and sometimes they can't. My definition of fear is the anticipation of an event that will happen in the future or might happen in the future, that if that event happens, you're going to feel something you don't want to feel. So there's two ways, in my opinion, to dismantle fear. One is to not think about the future, which that's not the greatest technique. Sometimes that works. That, yes, be in the present, of course. It's important for us to think about the future, to plan things. That's prudent. But if you're anticipating something in the future that could go wrong, that's going to get you into trouble. And so it's important to do a couple different things. One, remain present and don't be afraid of feeling what you're going to feel. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I'm going to do an operation and somebody's going to die and I'm going to be sad for that. And okay, I'm going to be sad and nobody ever died of sadness. I'll be sad. I'll get over it and I'll move on and I'll go to the next person and do what I can the next time. So if I can not be afraid of feeling what I want to feel, I won't have fear. So, and I'm not a master at it. I mean, I still struggle with it. I operated with another doctor yesterday. He needed to get some credentials. And so he needed to be in my case. And there's always like, oh, is he watching me? Am I doing a good job? There's always, your mind always has these drunken monkeys in the back of the head saying, should I be doing this faster? Is he thinking I'm slow? Is it like, no, shut up. Just do what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You did it 25 years in a row. Now keep doing it. And so if we can dismantle fear, what shows up, some people call it courage. I call it love. If you can totally dismantle it, it becomes love of what you do and of who you're helping. I tell a story in the book about I'm getting ready for a difficult operation, difficult craniotomy. The time of the day is suboptimal and I'm exhausted. It's been a long day. And all the factors, the external factors are warnings like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be doing this today. Starting the case late, you're tired. It wasn't something that I had done in a long time. I had done plenty of them years ago, but I hadn't done anything recently because I had been sending these types of cases to another partner who happened to be out of town. And this person needed the surgery right away. And I was getting ready to go in the hospital and I got a message on my phone from my father's doctor. And I thought, you better not call this guy now because I knew my dad was not feeling well. And I thought, don't call his doctor now because that'll distract you. But then I thought, I got to call him. It's the beginning of the weekend. If I don't call him now, I may not hear from him for a weekend. And so I called him and I found out, oh my God, my dad has cancer and he has a terminal prognosis. And I thought, oh my God, I can't operate now. My mind is totally off base. I'm totally distracted. And I decided I was going to go cancel the surgery. So I was like, I'll do it another day. I'll give it a day to get regroup. And, and as I went in there and I walked into the room, I saw this patient with his wife and his three daughters there looking at me for hope, they're like, you're going to help my father. You're going to help my husband. We need you. And I thought, oh my God, I know I want to go see my dad right now. I really, really, really want to go see my dad right now. He just gotten the diagnosis. He was about an hour away, lived in Short Hills, and I was in Princeton. And there was every cell in my body wanted to go see my father and give him a hug. And I thought, though, what would my father want me to do in this moment? What should I do? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to friggin' dedicate this operation to my father. I'm going to make it a monument to him and I'm going to tell him about it afterwards. And I shook the guy's hand and said, we're ready to go. And we're going to take care of this. And I operated on him and I made sure he got through it and I made sure he woke up okay. And then I jumped in the car and I drove up there. And as I thought about it, I thought, I had all these fears like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. What if something goes wrong? I could never live with myself. Oh my gosh, I'm distracted. My father's sick. I got to go see him. All these distractions, all these things about the future of something that could go wrong. And I said, you know what? I reminded myself of who I was. I'm a servant. And this man needed me, and his family needed me. His wife needed me. And that's like the most beautiful thing you could do, is to dedicate something to somebody else. And by dismantling that fear, I loved my father more. I loved my patient more. And I loved what I did more. I loved the surgery more. And when we're loving what we do, we're at our best.
I agree with you. That actually dovetails into a little bit about wrestling and like youth. What's your approach on youth wrestling? You helped co-found Trenton Wrestling, and you work deeply with these kids, and in addition to all the beautiful work you do. So I want you to talk about that, like with children and love, and what's more important, the results or other things when they're doing these sports.
Yeah. I started coaching youth wrestling when my boys were young. I started in the Princeton area with a club called PAWS, Princeton Amateur Wrestling Society, which is morphed now into Princeton Wrestling Club. As I started teaching, I loved the sport. I got so much out of the sport. And so I wanted to convey it and transmit it to my kids and to other kids. And I know how hard. It's a challenging sport. It's personal. You get poked in the eye, you get a bloody nose, you chip your teeth. Sometimes you get banged in the ear, and so it's a challenging sport, but it's also like so personal and such a great way to teach a kid how to channel their anger, and such a great way to teach a kid, the camaraderie of teammates, and how you're only as good as the person you work out with, that same person that's challenging you every day. You become best buddies, best partners with these people. And so I love that. And as I was doing it, I was a young neurosurgeon as well. And I would come into the room at the end of the day, and I would tell my kids a story. I would kind of boil it down, but I would tell them a story about work. And one time I came in, and it was a really profound day. I had operated on somebody that had a spinal cord tumor up in the high cervical region, right by their medulla oblongata, which is your respiratory center. And when I started the operation, the tumor was super, super stuck to the spinal cord. And I started trying to tease it away to try and separate and create a plane between the normal tissue and the abnormal tissue. And it was really, really challenging. And for a brief moment, I had this, again, fear came into my mind, like, are you good enough to do this? Like, maybe you should have sent this to some other doctor who could have done a better job than you, Are you up for this? And I had this little voice in my head for this split second or two. And I just got down to my basics. I said, look, get around it, shrink it, remove it. Get around it, shrink it, remove it. Get around it, shrink it, remove it. And this one area of plane that was super stuck, I went to another side of the tumor and I found a little plane, and I started dissecting and pulling and just kind of gently edging it away. And I got a little more confident. Then I got into the tumor and I shrunk it a little bit and gutted it from the inside, almost like scooping out like the meat of a melon. And then the melon shell started to collapse. And then I got a little bit more around the other side. I went back and forth, and I got it out. And I went to the kids that day and I said, guys, I want to tell you something. I was on the wrestling mat, but it was in an operating room. It's the same place. It's a hallowed ground where I have to perform. And I was doing this surgery. And for a minute, I thought, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. And what I said to myself was, stop thinking about that and think about the basics of the surgery. Think about getting around it, shrinking it, removing it. I said to the kids, I said, when you're on the mat, sometimes you're going to hear that little voice. Don't listen to it. Just focus on wrist control. Just focus on the tie-ups. Just focus on getting your feet moving, and you will get through that and you will move on. And it was so meaningful to me to like take something that I struggle with and bring it down to a kid's level and get them to realize, like, there's a voice in your head. And sometimes it's telling you the wrong stuff. Don't listen to that voice and go back to your basics and focus on that. So I love imparting those kinds of lessons to my kids. And I do it in as many ways as I can from a philosophical standpoint. And the results don't matter at all. The winning, losing, nothing. I want to make sure kids are paired properly so that we don't have one like super aggressive kid wrestling a kid who's not super aggressive. I want to make sure that every kid's getting a takedown and getting a good experience in the room. And, I like Brendan Buckley. I heard him on your podcast. I listened. I like his measure of success is the kid going to come out next year? If the kid comes out the next year, that's a great measure of success.
Doc, and so as a club owner, I'm just like, my biggest concern is retention. Because like wrestling has a low retention rate because we actually make it way harder, like mentally than it needs to be. And a lot of what I do with children is like, I actually just want you to fall in love with this sport because it's really great. And it is hard. And you're going to learn a ton of resilience from it that I don't even need to manufacture anything. You will learn it yourself because someone will be beating you up while everyone's watching you. And you have to rise to the occasion or shake this young man's hand and walk off and get over it and move on. And all of these skills are deeply important to your real life. And none of you will probably make a ton of money doing wrestling. You will gain a bunch of spiritual things that will attach to your psyche and your mindset and your soul. You can transition with you into places like your medical field that you're doing in high stakes environments, places like in the military. I will say I didn't have the opportunity to wrestle in college. That wasn't something that my family programmed in me, but the ethos and ethics that I got from wrestling as an athlete were deeply inspiring to me later. Like reading Mike Chapman's Wrestling Tough, which is if you haven't had the chance to read that, it is an amazing book on wrestling and mindset and this like kind of cognitive dominance that you were talking about and his exploration. Have you ever read that book or seen
I
it?
haven't. No.
You got to check it. That's
All right.
I'll send you a link to it. It's really great.
Okay. Appreciate it. Yeah,
So
I think of the wrestling mat as a fear laboratory. It's a fear laboratory. And, when these kids do their first match, you see a girl get on the mat. She's afraid. She's, and you're like, just go ahead and hit the move. Hit that double leg that we taught you. Hit that stand up. That's all I want to see. Don't worry about the win or loss. Just get the double leg, get the stand up. And they score it. Like, it's such a great feeling to see that light bulb go on and just, man, it's awesome. I get more out of it than the kids do.
I feel, well, you mentioned at some point, I think in an interview from my research on you about this coaching being a two-way street. What do you mean by that coaching is a two-way street?
Well, I learn just as much from the kids as I think they learn from me. I mean, I see, amazing feats of courage. I see amazing caring. I learned so much. So I coached in the Princeton program I still coach in the Princeton program, but about 10 years ago, we started Trenton Youth Wrestling. And I learned so much about my wrestlers in Trenton. So different, such a different experience for them than what I had as a kid and what my kids in Princeton have. I mean, I remember it was a rainy night. One night I was walking one of the kids home because the match ended really late and the bus didn't come and I had to get him home. And I just remember me as a child getting home after a match or any kind of game, the lights were on, the house was warm, the house smelled like food. Mom had something ready for me to get in to have a nice meal. And I was walking this kid home and we got to his house and there's no lights on, nobody's home. It's pouring rain. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, man, I just wanted to scoop him up and take him home with me,
Is that why you chose I worked so I started my career when I don't teach anymore. I just run my club. I was a teacher for 10 years. Why did you choose Trenton over being in Princeton? Your practice is in Princeton, like you do a lot of work in Princeton. Why Trenton?
Yeah. Trenton is just 9 miles down from Princeton. Princeton is like the Athens of the 21st century. It is absolutely shocking to see what's going on in Trenton in terms of the housing, in terms of the job market, in terms of the food desert. It's really, really, it's just, I can't believe that there could be two towns so diametrically opposed to each other, so close to each other. I was lucky enough to have some Trenton wrestlers come up to my Princeton wrestling room when I was coaching. And the Bethea family, Alex and Gloria Bethea, are teachers. They were teachers in the Trenton School District for 30, 40 years. They brought their kids into our wrestling room. So I had a chance to coach the Bethea kids who went on to become great wrestlers in college, University of Pennsylvania and other schools. And the director of operations for my club, Trenton, our youth nonprofit organization, is Ray Bethea, who is Trenton High's state champion, only state champion. And he's just a remarkable proof of concept of what wrestling can do for you. Ray's a scholar athlete. He's a remarkable man, and he's back passing on wrestling and mentorship to kids in Trenton. So it's incredibly meaningful and rewarding to bring it back to Trenton. And our goal is to build a state-of-the-art wrestling and learning facility where kids can go all day, any day of the week after school and get a warm meal, get a workout, have a place to study, and have an environment of excellence so that they can really see and reach their potential.
I saw that. And I love the fact that you guys are really pushing this learning part, because it is a total package thing. When I talk to the college wrestlers, I'm like, kids, your academic experience here is paramount. You walking away with that piece of paper, and part of my job as a college coach, you choose to be a national champion. I can only impart wisdom and guidance on what to do. A lot of these things, to become personally excellent, is personal. You have to do the work. I am a guide. And a lot of what I want is like, if you graduate and you come into my program as a wrestler, I will be ecstatic if I get you through the finish line, because I know how hard it is. And you're walking on that stage in your gown, and you wrestled with me for 4 years. Whether or not you stand on the national stage is irrelevant to me. You becoming a functioning adult with a clear plan and mission for the future, and potentially being a coach like yourself because you found something deeply inspiring from wrestling, or like myself, I didn't go on to do anything crazy. I went on to go, no, I want to be even deeper of an educator and help children even more. And if we build those people, I think we'll have a better society. So thank you for the work you're doing. Keep doing it.
Well, thank you. I love the Frederick Douglass quote: "It's much easier to build strong boys and girls than it is to repair broken men and women."
Oh, that is very true. That's a beautiful quote. That is a beautiful quote. Wrestling versus other sports. Do you think there's something different about wrestling that you're partial to in regards to a sport that kids do? Or do you think there's equal merit to the sports, or is wrestling a little different?
No, I think they're all equal in the end. It's really about coaching and who's your coach and how do they inspire you and how do they challenge you and how, so I do think you can get those lessons from really any sport, any pursuit of excellence outside of academics that you need to experience and get that fitness. I think that wrestling it's more personal in a way because when you lose six love in tennis, you don't go home with a black eye and a sore shoulder and a sore neck. So it's definitely more personal. I always love the Donald Rumsfeld quote. Some people say wrestling is like life. They're wrong. Wrestling is life reduced to its essence.
Yeah.
And there is an element of that. But it's not for everybody. I mean, not everybody has that kind of physicality in them. And I think it can be learned even through other activities like the pursuit of chess excellence or the pursuit of other types of excellence, acting, theater, literature. I think it can be done in any area, but it requires certain ingredients. It requires, a John Wooden-esque coach. It requires that kind of inspiring, motivational coach that can hold kids to a higher standard. So they know that, hey, no, you don't even know what your best is. Don't tell me you did your best. You don't even know what your best is, keep working. And it requires, family, parents that encourage it, that support it and don't denigrate it. And it requires, work on the kid's part. It requires an effort. But no, I think it can be done in other sports. I think it can be done in other endeavors.
Yeah. Why are you doing all this? Like, what is like? You don't have to. You're a successful professional. Why? You don't gain any monetary stuff from this. I imagine.
And I'm a servant, and I realized that fortunately early in my life. And by knowing who I am, I know that my job is to help anybody I meet and in any way I can. I'd like that on my tombstone. He helped people become better people. He helped people become more effective. He helped people achieve their potential. And that's what I want to do. So it's really not just in wrestling, it's anything. If I have a student come through my office that wants to, go into neurosurgery, I want to help them. I want to give them some lessons I've learned, talk to them about the rules of neurosurgery. If it's somebody who has a friend in Chicago that needs a urologist, I'm like, well, I don't know any urologists in Chicago, but I'll find out for you. I'll get you somebody. Or if it's, another organization that I derive great joy and meaning from, is Project One Vet at a Time, which is a veterans organization that I'm part of. We help veterans get the compensation and disability packages deserve. Some of our veterans, who are injured in combat and in service, they don't get adequate evaluations from the VA, and they don't get properly compensated for their injuries, and a lot of them are so stoic. They're like, no, I'm fine. There's so many people worse off than me. And I try to explain to them, like, no, listen, when you go to Hertz and you rent a car, they walk around that car before you drive off the lot, and they make sure there's no scratches or dents in it. And then when you drive it back, if there's 3 dents in it, you have to pay Hertz money because the car's damaged. That's what the government needs to do for our veterans that are injured in the acts of service. And it's not that the VA is an evil, empire that doesn't want to help. It's sometimes they're overworked, they're understaffed, they don't adequately understand what's going on. And sometimes it's on the veteran, that they haven't really adequately articulated the trauma that they've had or the post-traumatic stress injury that they've had. So it's the organization. Project One Vet at a Time is an organization that helps veterans, get evaluated. Sometimes they get evaluated and we tell them, look, you're at the exact compensation you should be at, and that's all we can do. That's all you're going to get. And we don't recommend that you go appeal, because you could lose something as
Yeah, you
well.
can lose it. So I do a lot of work with the VFW and helping vets kind of navigate that, because we have the veteran service officers and that the VFW utilizes. Because
Wonderful.
I know the process is insane. Like
Oh
it's
yeah, it's like fighting City
and
Hall.
yeah, and if you're not and the thing, and they make it insane because soldiers are crappy at paperwork because they are not the type. They're literally the demographic that joined the military because they are not school
Right.
people. And then
Right.
all of the benefits you obtain are hidden behind the bureaucracy of basically schoolwork. And they're just like, I don't even understand. I got to fill out a form and then send in this thing and then send in what's evidence. It's a real hard process. And like, I'm a dork, so I did school and I love school actually. So this process isn't hard for me, but that work you do, again, thank you. That's really great work.
Well, the problem with it, I think, from the start, is it's called disability, and they're not disabled. It's a compensation and
Yeah,
benefit
I think the
package
name
for your
is
injuries and for the damage that you incur when you're serving. So our long-term hope is to get that word changed, because it's a
service
pejorative term.
compensation, maybe
Yeah,
service compensation.
exactly.
What does success look like in wrestling? As a gentleman who's done it for 2 decades at this point, coaching, what does success look like? Is success only when we're standing on top of the podium at states? Is that only success from wrestling, or is there something deeper about what success means in wrestling?
Well, I would liken it, for my definition for success for myself, is having every human interaction be a positive one, be a nurturing one, be one that actually is a benefit to the person that I'm talking to. So if I took that to wrestling, it would be success in wrestling is when someone benefits from the sport in a positive way and they go off into society and are a more positive force because of wrestling. So wrestling gives them the discipline, perhaps, to, hone their craft of whatever they're going to be, an accountant, an attorney, doctor, a teacher, whatever, and they're going to pass it on to other people. That's what I would maintain as a success. A person leaving the wrestling mat, a positive force in this world in whatever they do, and for others.
Awesome. I'm not going to hold you too long because I know you have many other things to do today. But I wanted you to leave off. Do you have any message for youth wrestlers, coaches, people who are going to school and pushing, or anybody pushing to do something excellent and commit to personal excellence? Do you have any message for these people? Any advice?
Yeah, I would leave people with, fear is the most corrosive force on earth, and it's the killer of so many dreams and aspirations. Identify it. And Steve Pressfield, a great book called The War of Art. I don't know if you ever read it. Steve
I
Pressfield
know what you're
calls
talking
it
about.
resistance. He calls it resistance, but it's fear, and it's an inhibitor of our personal greatness, which we all have in different ways. So I would identify it, watch out for its disguises, the silly words that we use like uncomfortable, and identify for what it is. It's fear, and find a way to dismantle it, find a way to root it out and dismantle it. And when you do, what's going to show up is love, courage, effectiveness. And that would be my message. Anyone that's interested to come out and help us in Trenton Youth Wrestling and Learning Center, we could use your help, and we would love volunteers. We can use donations. We can use resources. If you know somebody who could help us, or who's interested and passionate about helping underprivileged kids, inner city kids that just don't have the resources that others have, please reach out. Our website is trentonyouthwrestling.org. We'd love to share thoughts with you and see if you can contribute to our mission.
Thank you again, Dr. McLaughlin, for coming here today and speaking to me. I'm sure everyone's going to find this conversation really, really thoughtful and eye-opening. And I really want to thank you, because you're probably not thanked enough, for really putting the unity in community and serving your community. I totally get and understand where you're coming from. I'm a teacher, coach. I was in the military. I have done everything that involves like serving the people. And thank you for being an example. I really appreciate it. And thank you for
your service, Nick. Thank you for your service. You're an amazing person as well. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Take care and have a great day.
Bye-bye.